Nobody lets a 20-year-old compete professionally without coaching, but yet we let them handle professional money with none. That's not an accident. It's widely reported that 60% of NBA players face serious financial trouble within 5 years of leaving the game. For the NFL, the number gets repeated even more, 78%. That number is broader than most people realize. Every time one of these stories breaks, the reason sounds the same. Cars, entourages, bad advisors, gambling, lifestyle creep. Okay, all true. But it's all downstream. Here's the turn. The better question isn't what they bought, it's who prepared them before the money showed up. Antonio Brown, Allen Iverson, Terrell Owens. Different stories, different details. Bankruptcy, foreclosure, lawsuit, child support pressure, bad investments and financial stress. Now, before we go further, one thing this video is not. This is not the athlete should have known better. You've already heard that take already. Now, it's not wrong, it's just not the whole story. The gap in the story most people tell is the space between life-changing money showing up and anyone actually preparing the player to handle it. Now, agents aren't part of this because they're villains. Nobody's really saying that. But they are part of this because they're the first professional standing between the player and the moment the money lands. That puts them in a position to help close it. But most of the time, nobody asks them to. So let's find out where the gap actually opens up. Most of these guys were never taught personal finance in school. And you know what? That's not unique to athletes. That's most of us. But here's where it splits. For most of us, the gap shows up slowly. A late credit card payment at 22, an overdraft fee, small mistakes, small money, room to recover. And I remember what a few $1,000s did to my head at 20. I didn't see the world at 20 the way I do now. Nobody does. Now, take that same 20-year-old and instead of a few $1,000s, hand him more money than he's ever touched in his life all at once. The mistakes don't get smaller because the person's younger. They get bigger because the number's bigger. Now, the next explanation people reach for is the family. Well, where was his parents? Well, here's the problem with that. Most families have never managed sudden wealth. Not because they failed their kid, because nobody in that house had a reason to learn it. You don't study estate planning and investment diversification for a paycheck that never came. So the family teaches what they know. Work hard, be generous, take care of people who took care of you. Nobody in the house has ever seen what a life-changing signing bonus or contract does to the same values under pressure. That's not a parenting failure. That's an experience nobody in that home has ever had. So if it's not the school and it's not the family, where is this supposed to get taught? By the time a player turns pro, look at everything that's been built around them. Position coaches, strength coaches, nutritionists, trainers, media training, equipment deals. Our son was drafted in the 2018 MLB draft, and I saw the mechanics of how agency representation works across the board, depending on where you were drafted and what round. His agent negotiated his signing bonus and made sure the equipment and the apparel were there for him. That part of the system works. It's built well, and it's built on purpose. Now ask the same question about the money. Who sat down with him and taught him what irregular pay looks like across the season? What taxes across multiple states actually cost? What it means if family and friends start asking for help? That system wasn't built. Not because anyone decided to skip it, because nobody was assigned to build it. Now broaden it out. Take a first-round NFL pick. Say his rookie contract includes an $8 million signing bonus, guaranteed the day he signs it. Right off the top, an agent fee, capped by the Players Union at 3%. $240,000 gone before anything else happens. Well, then taxes. The IRS treats a bonus like this as supplemental income. The first million may be withheld at the supplemental rate of 22%. But once supplemental wages goes over that $1 million in a year, the amount above that is subject to mandatory 37% federal withholding, before state tax, Medicare tax, and anything else. More than a third of that $8 million can be held back before the player ever gets full control of that money. And that's before he even played a single professional game. Once the season starts, players are commonly filing tax returns in a dozen or more states. There's a real thing called a jock tax, where athletes can owe income tax in many of the states and cities where they play, and not just where they live. Too often, nobody sits a 20-year-old down early enough and walks them through what that money really has to cover before the spending decisions start. So let's look closer at what agents actually do and what they don't. This is the part that needs to be said carefully because it's easy to hear it wrong. That 3% fee cap from a minute ago, that's tied to the agent's work as the contract advisor negotiating the playing contract. It was never designed to make the agent the player's financial counselor, and most agents do that negotiating job well. That's real value, and it's the job they were actually hired to do. Agents aren't hired to be financial counselors. That's not their job, and it's not fair to pretend it is. But they're often the first professional standing next to the athlete when life-changing money enters the picture. Before the accountant, before the business manager, before anyone whose actual job is protecting that money long term. If nobody in that chain connects the athlete to real financial education, that gap stays open. Nobody closes it. Nobody was required to. That's 4 gaps stacked on top of one another before a single dollar ever gets mismanaged. So let's go back to where this video started, the number itself. Remember that 78% NFL number from the top of this video? That figure gets repeated everywhere. But when researchers actually looked at bankruptcy filings specifically, that number came in a lot lower, around 16% within 12 years of retirement. Now, financial stress and bankruptcy aren't the same thing. The bigger number wasn't really wrong. It just measured something broader than the headline implies. And here's where that correction actually matters for this video. 16% isn't a scandal number. It's still roughly 1 in 6 players. And most of them didn't walk in expecting a short career. They walked in expecting a decade or more. The average NFL career actually runs about 3 years. Less time to make mistakes, less time to fix them, and still nobody trained the money. The exact percentage is debatable. The pattern underneath it is not. And I'll say it again now that you've seen the whole picture. Nobody lets a 20-year-old compete professionally without coaching, but yet we let them handle professional money with none. Now, none of this erases personal responsibility. The player still signs the check, still makes the call on the car, the house, the deal, the guy in his ear telling him, hey, this is a sure thing. But responsibility works both directions. You can't fairly blame someone for failing a test nobody taught them how to take. The collapse we see years later, the bankruptcy filing, the foreclosure, the lawsuit, that's not where the story starts. It starts earlier. When a young person with no financial foundation gets handed sudden wealth, fame, and pressure inside a system that prepared them for everything except that, income without preparation is dangerous. And it doesn't matter how much talent came with it.